going to win. Are you gentlemen ready? Shake hands. Oh, wait, no, shake hands. Coronavirus.
Oh.
All right, ready?
Are you ready, Paul? Don't mess up.
I was born ready, Adam.
Dude, I was meant for.
Ready, go!
Oops.
Oh, man, this is not looking good. Not looking good at all. It's in the wrist. That's what they say. It's in the wrist.
Yes!
One for Adam. One for Paul. Oh, man, here we go. Oh, I think the water's breaking. Oh! You guys, I was watching Adam do this earlier today, and I was so confident he was going to, like, definitely lose. So, it's like comeback kid, underdog win for sure. All right, Paul, you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It's been a little warm
Oh, you gotta
outside.
scooch a little closer.
Oh, okay.
Gotta get you in the shot so everyone can really enjoy it. Wait, I'm gonna take a video of this so I can get a slow-mo. Just because everybody loves slow-mo videos.
Keep it for your posterity, right?
All right, man.
Does anybody want to do the honors?
Dude, I can do it.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
That was only one water bottle.
What a
Awesome.
tasty challenge.
Way to be a good sport, you guys. Hope that cools you down in the Florida heat. That's just something fun we want to do with you guys. I hope you guys got it right because I definitely guessed incorrectly on who I thought was going to win. So now we're going to transition to a little bit of time of worship. And I just want to take a moment to encourage you guys. I know it can't be easy. I don't know where you're watching from, if you're on your couch, in your bedroom, watching with your family. But I really want to encourage you guys. Like I said, we are about fun, but we're also about faith. Really take this time to get into worship and engage with these guys who are going to lead us. This is your time to talk to God through music, to connect with God through music, whatever that looks like for you guys. So I just hope that you take this moment to really worship with us.
What I pray is worship, empty words I can't afford. I'm not chasing feelings, that's not why I'm singing. You're the reason for my song.
Alright, well, we're glad you guys are tuned in today. The song is the weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph, and my God will never fail. Yeah, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. So I'm not backing down from any giant. Yeah, I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
So, will you guys join us in prayer as we? God, we thank you for everyone who has tuned in tonight. We just ask that we would be expectant for what you have for us. We thank you for everything.
What's up, Velocity Live? How are you guys doing? I know you're on there. I saw so many names come through as we were watching just a moment ago. Here's the deal. We really are so stoked that you are checking us out. Because you can be doing anything tonight, and you chose to log on and hang out with us, and that means a ton. And I don't think you're going to regret it. Because one of the things I love so much about what happens here at Velocity is that we tackle the tough questions. I don't know how you're watching. Maybe you're watching and you've grown up in church, you understand the Bible, you are very confident in your relationship with Jesus, and that is so incredible. Maybe you're watching and you're not really sure where you stand with faith. You have a lot of questions, there are things you've been wrestling with, and for you, maybe it's been difficult to come to the church with that. I know that was a lot of my thought process growing up when I had doubts, when I had insecurities, when I had questions. I was worried about taking those to the church because what if they judged me? I want you to know if you're listening right now, you have logged on to the right place. You have logged on to a church family who cares deeply about you, who wants to build this to be a safe space for you to discover faith. Safe space to bring your questions, safe space to struggle, a safe space to bring your fears. We want to talk through them. We're closing out in our third and last part of IDK, where we're actually tackling some of the hardest questions to talk about in the church. But I want you to know that even after this, we're not going to stop talking about the tough topics. That's our heart, that's our hope, is to continue to address what you're going through, the questions that you have. And so as we close out, I've loved this series. It's been my first one here. If I haven't met you, I guess I really haven't met any of you, but if we haven't connected digitally yet, my name is Bradley Hamilton. I'm the student pastor here, and I have just loved getting to start and get to know you guys, and I'm excited for what God has in store. And so I just want to dive right in. Here's kind of the topic we're going to wrestle with. It's this idea of what happens in the Christian life when there's pain, suffering. What happens as a Christ follower when you hit trials, when circumstances threaten to take you out, when temptations are tough. And I think that a lot of us unintentionally, this was me at least growing up, and I still have wrestled with this today. I think we believe this lie sometimes that because I follow Jesus, that means everything's just because I follow Jesus, it means I'm not going to struggle anymore. I won't have any more issues. My family will be great. Like, I'm not going to struggle financially. I'm not going to struggle with decisions. That bully at school is just going to disappear. Like, we wouldn't say it out loud, but I think a lot of us feel, well, kind of like this story of the first time I rode an upside down roller coaster. If you're watching right now and you love roller coasters, shoot an emoji in there. Is there a roller coaster emoji? I don't even know. Shoot and say, hey, I love roller coasters. If you're terrified of them, let me know. I used to be terrified. I was that kid who, I was way too old and still way too scared when we used to go to theme parks and ride roller coasters. And I was scared of the ones that went upside down. I was fine as long as they didn't go for a loop. And so the first time I ever rode one, I actually didn't know that's what I was riding. We get in line, and my dad had coaxed me into getting in line for this roller coaster. And as we're in line, he had told me, hey, it doesn't go upside down, you're good. And I see that there's a loop. So I start to freak out, and I'm like, Dad, there's obviously a loop in this. I don't want to be here. I start to panic. He says, no, son, that's a different coaster. He lied to me, right? My own dad lied. I know. Can you believe it? And so being the great son that I am, I just believed him and just stayed in line. And so we get on the roller coaster. We go up the hill. We turn the corner. And now I see where this is heading. And it's straight into a loop. Of course, at this point, too late. Nothing I can do. We fly down this loop. I was terrified. I was screaming. I didn't talk to my dad for the rest of the day. Here's the thing. I think that sometimes in our Christian faith, we feel like that was what we were given. Maybe you feel like you were told that this would be a different track. That if you follow Jesus, your parents' marriage will get back together. If you follow Jesus, that temptation is no longer an issue. If you follow Jesus, the people who pick on you, they're just going to leave and your relationships will never struggle and you'll never be hurt by people. And again, we wouldn't say it this way, but deep down, so many of us feel it. And then when trials come, then when suffering happens, we feel this tension, this disconnect between the life we thought we were having with Jesus and now that there's struggle, there's trial, and there's pain. Here's what I want to talk about tonight, and this is a difficult statement. Christian life is not a painful. Christian life is not a struggle-free life. Christian life isn't even always an easy. And I get this from the book of James, and this is where I want us to hang out at for a little bit. And I love James because we talked about this a little bit last week. James was the brother of Jesus. And James, just in who he is alone, encourages my faith, helps me to believe in Jesus, that he was who he said he is, because James was the brother of Jesus. And if you look throughout the gospel stories of Jesus growing up, James thought he was crazy. He denounced Jesus, of course, because if your sibling said, hey, I'm the son of God, you'd be like, yeah, right. And so this is what James lived with. Can you imagine living and comparing yourself to the Son of God, right? You think that like your youngest sibling gets to do whatever they want. Imagine if your sibling was the Son of God, right? So this is what James had to deal with. Thought his brother was crazy, went on record saying that. And then after Jesus dies, James becomes this believer in Jesus, and he starts to preach, plant churches, and lead other people. And he starts to proclaim, my brother is God. Now, what would take for you to believe that your sibling was God? Well, James said it's because he saw him raised from the dead. So even though it was tough to believe, even though it was difficult to wrestle with, James ends up not just saying, hey, my brother's crazy, but saying, no, my brother's God, and he dies for his faith, following after his brother, who he believed was now his Savior. So even James alone, I just encourages my faith. Maybe it helps yours. But as he's writing to the early church, and here's what's happening at the time, just to give you some context around the book of James. Jesus had risen. This movement of followers began to take off. Hundreds of eyewitnesses who saw him raised from the dead began to preach and teach and lead, so the church is expanding like never before. Now, I wish I could tell you that the story of the early church is, yep, they were growing, things were expanding. Now that there was this big movement of Christ's followers, there were no more struggles and no more issues. They had an easy road. That's not the story of the early church. Because as they began to proclaim that this guy who the government and the Jewish leaders thought was just this cult leader, when they began to say he was God, when they began to give their allegiance to him, the government was furious. And the same people who sought to kill Jesus now sought to kill Christ's followers. They began to torture them. They began to go into their houses and steal from them, to pull their family members out into the streets and beat them. And everyone who claimed the name of Christ was now being killed for their faith. Still, the church was growing. So now you have James, and he sits down, and he is fully believing and knowing that his brother is God. And so he's writing a letter to those Christians. The Christians who are afraid of their lives, the Christians who are running scared, the Christians who are trying to follow after Jesus in a world that is marked by suffering, pain, and trial. And you would think he would say, hey, just follow after Jesus. Don't worry about this. He says a really tough verse. This is where I get this idea that the Christian life isn't a struggle-free life. Here's what he says. We'll jump right in. James chapter 1, verse 2, he says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many. Now, hold on. In our world now, that sounds crazy. Consider it joy when you face trials. Like, that doesn't sound like he's making any sense. Can you imagine the audience that he was writing to? How they're hearing this? Their family members were being killed for their faith. And James says, consider it joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds. This sounds crazy, but I want to point out a few things that James is referring to here, because I think for many of us, it's this lie that the Christian life is struggle-free that James is trying to combat. We're going to see that he actually is going to give us a roadmap on how to face struggle. Here's a couple things he says. So first of all, notice he says when you face trials, not if. So here's the truth. He's just accepting that, hey, you're going to. In this life, you are going to face trials. It's not an if, it's a when. And then I love this word face, because maybe in your Bible it says encounter. The original word is actually to hit. It's literally to come into contact with and hit a wall. So he's saying, when you hit the struggle, because it will happen, then he just doubles down. He says, of many kinds. In other words, here's the good news. Ready? Christian, Christ follower, get ready. You will hit many kinds of obstacles in this life. You're locking on going, never mind, I'm not so sure about this velocity thing. Like, this is the message they're bringing. And this is what James is writing to, because he needs to understand. He wasn't calling them to a life free. But don't miss the good news that he has laid out in this verse, because he continues. He says, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, as you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature, complete, not lacking in. Here's the point James is drawing out. God, he works different. In this life, we have struggles. That is a human condition that we all face. But with God, he actually uses trials. God's different. He actually takes struggle, and it's not pointless, but there's purpose. That we serve a God who, in our suffering, does something with it. See, suffering originally, it wasn't God's plan. He set up him and us to have a relationship together of freedom, of intimacy, of connection, where there was no suffering, there was no pain. But ever since the beginning, we have chosen opposite of God. And I used to look and go, well, that's not fair. People have chosen opposite in God, and so now I have to live with this condition. But then I look at my own life and I do this. Maybe you're in that same boat. You actually make mistakes that you choose other than God. So suffering is what's entered our world. Really, we deserve it. So if that's the end of the story, that's a pretty grim message. That one wouldn't have made followers of the early church continue to follow after Jesus. What James is describing is that, but God handles it differently. But God does something in our mess. In other words, God takes the broken and he makes it beautiful. This is what God does. There is brokenness in our heart, in our lives, in our world, and God sets out to take what is broken, what is devastated, what you think cannot be redeemed. He sets out to make that thing. So when James says, consider it joy, you're going to face trials of many kinds, but let it be something. God saying that don't despair because of trial. Despair because there's suffering. God wants to act, wants to make it. This is so different than what the world sells. The world sells when there's brokenness, when there's destruction, that's you have to give up, you have to walk away. And the message of Jesus is that there's hope. Because of what Jesus has done. You think about yourself before Jesus. Here's what James is trying to get us to consider. That before Jesus, and we're left to our brokenness. We're left to it. There's nothing we can do to fix it. And so you have to carry your shame. You have to carry your regret. You have to carry the hurt. He's saying, but know what's happened now that Jesus has risen. There's now a way to be made right with God. Your shame isn't on your back anymore. You don't have to carry your guilt. You don't have to carry your mistake. You can find redemption. It doesn't matter how broken, how far gone, how messed up, that in Jesus you have hope, you have purpose, you have freedom. And James is shouting to the Christians that yes, there is so much brokenness, but consider it joy because you are different, Christ follower. You have the hope of a risen Savior. Loves you, is for you, gave himself for you. He is building this plan of redemption. So then I love it. James gets real practical. He says, not only am I going to tell you to just have joy when things are tough, but then he gives us a little roadmap on how to do it. So I don't know where you sit right now, but if you're looking at a trial, if you're looking at a struggle, I hope that this verse speaks to you. Because this verse has pulled me out of some pretty dark places in my life. And I think it's so powerful. And here's what James writes. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, gives generously to all without finding fault, given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. Again, he's writing to people who are looking at their trials and they're confused. They're going, I didn't think it would be this way. I thought the Christian life would be different. Why is this happening? So they needed wisdom. So James is saying, hey, if you get to that place where you're going, why is this happening? What's going on? He's saying, hey, bring that to God. See, here's the issue, and this was me for so much of my life. Whenever I hit a circumstance or a trial, I thought that it was God's fault, and so I pushed him away. And what James is saying is when you hit a struggle, when you hit a trial, what you have to do is hold tighter. Hold God closer. Lean into him because he gives generously all without finding fault. This means that however this situation happened, whether it was a circumstance outside of your control or whether you caused it, saying, instead of running away from God, you lean in, you hold tighter. And he had this boldness, he had this confidence because doubting God wasn't even a question to him because he saw his brother raised from the dead, and so he just believed it. And he's urging Christ's followers, don't push away, don't lean away, lean in, hold tight, because your God cares. He's a generous God. Have you ever seen a kid like at the pool jumping to his dad in the water? It's always one of the funniest scenes to me because the kid's like afraid, right? He's like on the edge and he's kind of teetering and he doesn't want to jump because something about that scares him. Like he's not even that high up. The water's not like crazy. It's just a pool. Like it's so weird that would be terrifying to a kid. Here's what the kid's doing. He's looking at the height. He's looking at the water. He's looking at the circumstances. You know what he's forgetting? It's his dad. This is his dad. His dad's not going to let anything happen to him. His dad loves him, cares for him, and is so much more powerful than the waves of the pool. The dad's going, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Just jump. I can't handle it. So many of us, and maybe you're in this seat now. You're facing the trials and the struggles of being home all the time with your family. You're facing the struggles of fear and worry about what's going on. You're facing the very real, very difficult trials, and I don't want to diminish those at all. But I do want you to know that God's more powerful. I don't want to diminish the power and how big your issues are, but we have a God who is bigger. And sometimes we have to take our view off of the water and the height and the waves, and we have to remember that the one who's asking us to jump and lean in is our dad. He's got it. He's for you. I just want to say simply this, and this has just helped me in some tough seasons of my life. Don't let your trial tell you who got it. Too often this is what we do. We look at our trial and we think God is not good because of this thing. God is not powerful because of this illness. God is not loving because this happened to my family. What if instead you told your trial who you're and you spoke into what's happening right now and said, yes, depression, you are big, but my God is bigger. Yes, anxiety, you are ripping me apart, but my God is there. Yes, family relationship issues, you are horrible and you are devastating, but my God is present. He has got me. Yes, COVID-19, you are just destroying what's happening, my plans for everything, all of what's going on at school. Now I can't graduate, but my God is bigger and he has a plan and he's not going to let me go. And he's going to continue to lean in, and I just have to make sure I'm focusing on him and not the waves. Yeah. What would it look like, whatever your trial is, if you looked at it tonight and said, you know what, I'm not letting you tell me about God, I'm telling you about who God is. I think for so many of us, this season has brought up a lot of these thoughts of trial and anxiety. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. We have all been encountering that in the season together. And I'm just so thankful that if you've taken the step to even watch this, then you're leaning in. You've taken the step to engage with your church family and to get into God's word and to hear what he has to say about this. You're on the right path. You're doing what James said. I just want to encourage you to keep, because you have a God who's there. You can jump to him. You can take it. I'm just thankful that you've joined us. I'm going to have the worship team get set up, but don't tune me out just yet. As they get set up behind me, I want to talk to a couple of people. Because I think for some of you, you haven't ever made that jump. Starting a life, a relationship with Jesus and connecting with him has kind of always been something that you have felt like you were on the edge of. You've thought about it, you've considered it, but you've looked at all the reasons of maybe why not. And I just want to encourage you tonight, if you are feeling this desire, this need to give God a try, to maybe jump into a relationship with him, to maybe something that we said tonight got rid of the doubt, the fear, maybe your doubt, the reason you were hesitant to get near Jesus is because of this issue of suffering. And maybe tonight God is asking you and speaking to you to begin a relationship with him, to take that step, to jump into his arms. He cares for you. He's for you. Maybe you've been running. You've been going the opposite because of circumstances and trials, and you let those things tell you who God was. Maybe right now you've decided, I'm going to turn that around and I'm going to tell those trials who my God is, and I'm going to jump. And if that's you, can I just say how proud I am of you? That this isn't coincidence, this voice in your head of God speaking to you and asking you to engage with him once again, that's not us, that's not just emotion, that is God in this moment who is talking to you. It's not coincidence that you hopped on here on Instagram Live. In fact, it's kind of cool to think about it. A lot of times I talk about how God's meeting you in this room because there's a lot of students around. How cool is it that God's meeting you in your bedroom? It's meeting you in your living room. That's meeting you right now at your kitchen table. That's reaching you right now on your porch. Because he loves you. He is not going to let this trial take you out. So maybe if you want to start a relationship with him, it's a simple prayer, but it's not so much about the words or the prayer itself. It's about what's happening in your heart. And you can pray something like this to God either right now or after this. You can get alone or during the worship. You can just say something like, God, I know I'm a sinner. I know I have brokenness. I know I'm messed up. There's nothing I can do about it. God, you sent your son. Take my place, to trade places with me, to make me right with you. I believe in him. And I want to follow after Jesus. Again, that's really it. It's about what God's doing in your heart. You can say any different arrangement of those words. But if that's you, would you just DM us? I see those, our team sees those, and we honestly just want to celebrate, because help us out. Listen, we're in this room with a phone. I never even met y'all. And I just would love to celebrate with you, as if we were in person, as if we were gathered. I want to know if you've taken that step, maybe tonight for the first time, to follow after Jesus. For others of you, and then I'll close out and we'll have some closing worship, but I think there are some others that right now, if you were honest, what's happened with COVID, what's happening in the world, you've let it push you away. And you've stepped back from your group. You've stepped back from meeting. You've stepped back from watching the. Maybe you're watching this not even live because you weren't sure if you wanted to join live, and so you're watching the next day and God's meeting with you. And I just want to ask, if that's you, I get it. James got it. Early church, they got it. James is pleading with you the same way he was pleading with them. Not give up. Keep leaning in. Keep pushing forward, and maybe the brokenness of this season is what God is using in your life to make something beautiful. Don't miss it. Let me pray for us, and these guys are going to take it away. God, I thank you. I thank you for loving us. I thank you for being for us. I thank you for not leaving us to our brokenness and our mess, but making a way out through your Son. That's the joy we get to have. God, I pray tonight that you would reawaken joy in many of us. That tomorrow would look different. We would come out of our rooms and our parents would say, who the heck is that? Because you have filled us with something different. Because we're no longer looking at the trial or the waves, but we are looking at our Father who's got us. God, would you stir something up? I thank you for the ones right now making decisions to step closer to you. God, in this moment, as we worship you, we just declare these words. You are powerful. You have got us. You can do the impossible. So God, right now, we just, wherever we're at, whether it's in our room or whatever, we just worship you. In your name I pray.
Now I live for the moment. I'm still in your presence. All the noise dies down. Lord, speak to me now. You have all my attention. I will linger and listen and miss a thing. Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. All I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for a touch of heaven. Oh, oh, You're the fire in the morning, you're the cool in the evening, breath in my soul, oh, the life in my bones. There is no hesitation in your love and affection. It's the sweetest of all. Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. All I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to
Straight up forgot. I was so in the worship moment, y'all. I straight up forgot I had to do this. Okay. What's up, you guys? Thank you so much for tuning in with us, worshiping with us, gathering with us. Like Bradley was saying, it's so important that we stick with our church family. And, you know, especially when we can't meet in person, we're still connecting digitally. Just to remind you a couple things, we still have Zoom groups happening all week long. If you're not in a Zoom group, you definitely need to get one. Community, community, community. That's what we need. If you want to know more details about that, are you ready to join one? Hop over to our Instagram bio and you'll see the link there to find your group for your grade. You know, tomorrow I know we have our Zoom lunch, right? And there's a middle school one and a high school one, so look out for that. Bradley has lives going on all week, so I highly encourage you, look at our Instagram, keep up with all that stuff, and it's pretty entertaining. The one they did yesterday, if you missed it, I'm telling you, you missed out. It was hilarious. And we are here for you guys. Reach out if you need anything, DM us. This is what we're here for, to be